Speaking before you all in this capacity as the gentlemen and our leaders of our association have just said. I'm Ndubuisi Ekekwe. I'm actually speaking from Pennsylvania in the United States at the moment. I'll be having a conversation titled Business Innovation and Growth in Post-COVID-19. That should be COVID-19, not 1010. So we'll be having this conversation to look at how leverageable opportunities, how models, process, construct, capabilities which can drive efficiency in the utilization of factors of production, and how innovation, growth can help us overcome the paralysis that we expect to happen as a result of this pandemic. Over the last few weeks, we have seen the rattling around the world how this virus has changed the ordinance in market systems. But when things like these happen, there is always one solution for business people. When growth comes in companies, every problem disappears. And that means that that company is growing. And when a company is growing, beautiful things happen. Not just to the markets that are served, but also to the companies that are participating and to staff that are working in the company. So as we go into this post-COVID-19, we will need to have growth in our companies. We will need, as employees in companies, or as entrepreneurs or founders in companies that we own, irrespective of whether we are working for somebody or that we are running our own shows, growth is very critical. And that growth, we believe, will come through innovation. And I'm going to share here how some of these elements can come to pass within the COVID-19 post-era. So I begin that conversation by taking us to the mission of farms. Why do we actually need companies? And I will explain that we need companies because demand and supply are largely imperfect. Because markets are imperfect, there is a need for a company to help to fix the frictions which exist in the marketplace. There are frictions between demand and supply because markets are not perfect. If I want to eat here in Pennsylvania and assume there is no restaurant, or maybe there is no food in my house, and I want to have an opportunity to eat food, there are two things that will happen. I will begin to knock at every door here in Pennsylvania looking for somebody who has food to sell. And also that person possibly is also looking for somebody to come and buy from him or her. Alternatively, I just go hungry. But if I want to choose the first part, knocking at each door here, looking for somebody that has food, I may not be utilizing my time very, very productively. So when somebody has noticed that during maybe certain time in the day, people are looking for food to buy, that individual opens a shop. That shop is what we call a restaurant. That shop is what we call a fast food. That shop is what we call an eatery. So that when people are hungry, instead of knocking at the door in Lagos, knocking at the doors, in Nairobi, knocking at the doors, in Accra, Ghana, they will quickly go to that restaurant to eat. That restaurant has fixed a friction which exists between the demand, the person that want to buy, and supply, the person that want to actually produce that particular product. This construct runs across all ordinances of market systems, across industrial sectors, and it is the most fundamental thing in every business system. So you have money. Oh, you are not seeing my screen.
Yes.
Hello? You cannot see my screen.
Yes.
Oh, that's very strange. Let me try it again. Stop sharing screen, but it's saying stop. It's saying that the screen is working. Wow, that's serious. Oh, let me try. Let's try it again. He said I'm stopping it now just to get it back to start seeing the screen.
Okay.
I'm stop. It says stopping screen sharing now.
You are seeing your dashboard. You are doing your keyboard.
Can you see me now?
Not yet.
Okay. So what did you say that you can see?
It's sort of like a keyboard. A
Oh,
It's not
screen
even a
keyboard is
keyboard.
what we are saying.
No, this is not even a
this is
keyboard.
what you see.
Now,
Um, okay.
uh,
Let's go through the whole process again. I don't know what the problem is here, but I can see that stop sharing your screen. So let me turn it off.
Let
And
me.
okay, let's go through the process again. So give me access again,
We can
and
still see
let's
the
see.
screen now, or it's gone again.
yeah, saw it just now and
Okay,
it left again. So, yeah.
okay, okay. I'm
Are you
sharing the
seeing it
screen.
now?
Okay, share screen. I just turned it on now. Or do I just email you this for you to project it? I don't know
Okay.
why
Email
it's
it to me
giving us
as well.
difficulty.
That's equally another
Okay,
link.
okay, yeah. I think hold on now. I think it's it seems um hmm. Okay. Let me send it to you quickly
Just send it to
to.
my mail so I can just display it.
Oh, okay, but it's showing. It's saying that I stop sharing. So it's sharing my screen.
Uh,
Hmm. Oh, you can't see it.
We
Okay,
are only
sorry.
looking
Let me
at
send it to you now.
Mr. Joseph Idono's cam. Mr. Joseph Idono, can you please turn off your webcam, please?
He doesn't have
Ah,
his earpiece on yet.
what is the name?
IT.
Mr.
Uh,
Mr.
Joseph what?
Joseph, Mr. Joseph Idono, please turn off your
okay,
webcam.
Turn off your
okay.
camera, sir.
Let me see. So let me quickly.
Okay, I've helped him
Surah,
to do it.
Surah, Surah.
So just
Okay.
send it to my email. No, let me give you my email. Send it to
I'm
my
sending it
email.
to WhatsApp. Will WhatsApp
My,
work? I think WhatsApp will be
send it to
fast.
my
I'm
email.
already there. No, I'm sending it to your WhatsApp really fast. Just sending it right now. But I can speak while we're doing that. So let me just quickly send it and um all see. Let me see all these legacy. Okay, I'm surprised that Cisco can. Okay, I've sent it to your WhatsApp right away.
Just okay. Which of the WhatsApp? Yes. Okay. Okay. I know. Don't. I think I see what to do about it. Screen. I hope we're all seeing it now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see that.
Yes, Prof, you can
Square
share.
now.
Prof, maybe you need to come in again. I'm not seeing you. We are expecting you back. No, I've seen the. Which name did you use so that we can give you the access back? N. Okay, N alone. Okay, I'm seeing one N here. Let me give the N. I've opened it already for them. Okay, use the. Okay, talk. Let's hear you now. Uh, we are
Mr.
having.
Smart, both Ndubuisi, Ogbodo, and N, both of them are mute. Maybe you can look through it, sir.
I don't think he's a. Is he the person? Anyway, let's try it. Let's try. We have two people bearing his names are many here. Okay, that's like you said. Let's try to. Which name is he using?
Can he unmute himself?
Yes, people can. I'm trying to see how we can. Hello, who is N? Let me even stop the recordings.
This conference
And
will
these
now be
two
recorded.
these two things are brought together into a ecosystem through market forces. If I have $1,000 with me here and I want to put that 1,000 to work, I have to find somebody I can lend that 1,000, for instance, maybe at interest rate of 10%. There is an information asymmetry that I may not easily find that person. Even though there may be somebody who needs $1,000 and ready to pay maybe 20% on interest rates. That information asymmetry that makes it nearly impossible for me to find that person whom I can lend that money is an element of friction which must be overcome for us to have the ability to have a more ecosystem that is a little bit more productive. So what happens? Somebody says, let me go and start off a bank. Because if I start off a bank, when Ndubuisi, who has $1,000, can come to the bank and put that money, and the bank will pay him an interest rate, let's say 10%. And that person who has been looking for somebody that will give him $1,000 for him to do whatever he wants to do can also go to the bank to ask that bank for money. So the bank says, okay, you pay us 20% because we have to lend this money at risk to you. The difference of 10% is an indication of the effort that the bank has put in to fix that friction which existed between me and that particular individual. So across all ordinances, across all market sectors, companies exist in order to fix the friction which exists between demand and supply. By fixing that friction, it makes it possible that companies can now equilibrate, having a relationship between demand and supply. But how do you fix friction? You have to have capabilities. You have to have capabilities, and those capabilities are actually the things that you have acquired. There are capabilities in the area of technology, there are capabilities in the area of management, there are technology in the area of operation, there are capabilities across all domains in the business system. Because only capabilities make it possible that companies can fix and serve the markets upon which they want to participate. You don't wake up in the morning one day and say, I want to start off a company. You have to ask yourself, do I really have what it takes to start off a company? So when you have felt that you have the capabilities to start something in that particular area that you want to do business, that is when you open up a shop. And that shop could be a restaurant, it could be a bank, it could be an insurance company, it could be an IT company. But you need capabilities. So understanding the market system takes us that there needs to be a friction, which means something that is a problem in the market. And that you have seen that fixing that friction provides an opportunity for you to earn revenue. And one way of fixing market friction is by setting up a company, which makes it possible that you can create a bigger force that will overcome that friction. It turns out that one of the most potent forces in markets is nothing but products and services. So when you are looking at the forces in markets, you are looking at products, you are looking at services. Because products and services, when they are unleashed in markets, they have the capacity to overcome the frictions which exist in the markets. When you have a bank, you have the ability to fix that asymmetry between the person who wants money and the person who actually has the money to lend. And when you have a restaurant, you have the capacity to actually provide food, to sell food to that person who is hungry and looking for where to eat food. It takes us back to the old conversation that happened many, many years ago during the greatest time of the Greek philosophers. A time came, they were asking themselves a question: what is the material component of the universe? What is this world made up of? It was a time that these men were trying to understand the great postulation of the origin of everything on earth. Tao said the world was made of water. Heraclitus said the world was made of fire. But I like what Pythagoras postulated. He said that the world is made up of numbers. And for him, that everything on earth is nothing but a business of numbers. It turns out for you to become a very good business person, you need to have a capacity to make sense of the numbers, of the frictions which exist in your business. Because if the world is made up of numbers, it means that the business of markets, the challenges of customers, the opportunities in markets can be understood from the lens of numbers. If I see the numbers, I can understand what the challenges are. If I can make sense of the numbers, I can see the road to the mountaintop. And that means the companies that pursue that continuum of making sense of the numbers in their businesses are usually the companies that find value across market systems. So it has been like that. There is a friction, and there is a need to have a company that can give us products and services to overcome those frictions. And for us, if we are looking for growth, it means that we have to create great products and services, because it's only when we create great products and services that is when we can have leveragable factors to win in the marketplace. Creating great products and services will require that we have accumulated capabilities. Accumulation of capabilities here now will look at our ability to run great companies, our technical superiority, our managerial capacity, and every ordinances in market systems. We need to have ability to do them. It's only when we do them, that is when the talk becomes a reality. That is when the idea becomes a product. That is when that imagination becomes revenue. That is the time you redesign from becoming an inventor to an innovator. You move from invention to innovation, because invention is nothing but an idea. It's only when you have commercialized it, that is the time it becomes an innovation. I go back more than 500 years ago, when we have some of the most fundamental constructs in mathematics, physics, chemistry, but the people that lived therein, most of them were poor. But something began to happen. They began to move from invention to innovation. A lot of things have happened that enabled that translation to happen. So the question here is this: you have a great idea. How are you going to turn that into innovation? I do not believe that there is any innovative company that has not created product or service. If you say you have come up with a great idea and people are not paying revenue for it, you are still an inventor. So our challenge here is, how do we now innovate to drive growth? Because it's only when that innovation provides you revenue, that's when I would say it has a leverageable factor. The world of business is not about who can create the most sophisticated technology. The world of business is really about who can create something that people will buy. Apple does not generally become the first company in any category. Apple did not invent the smartphone industry. There was BlackBerry before iPhone. Apple did not invent the world of music, electronic music pod like the iPod. There was a Walkman before the iPod. Apple did not invent the world of smartwatch. There was the Pebble before the Apple Watch. But Apple has figured out a way of turning inventions into innovation by creating leverageable factors that they can get people to become consumers to customers and for customers to farm. That ability to have that fandom is the reason why it's one of the greatest companies on earth. Because by turning it into the heads of his fans, a young man may take his monthly salary under the winter of New York City and he will take a day out of work just because he wants to be the first person that will buy the iPhone. And when he buys the iPhone, he takes a picture of the iPhone, he posts it on Twitter and says, ladies and gentlemen, I have got the new iPhone. For somebody to do that, that person is not just a customer. That person has transitioned from becoming a customer into a fan. And that's what innovation gives you. It means that Apple takes us from the point of serving customers to the point of creating a new basis of competition. A new basis of competition means that you are offering something in the market that is just not ordinary. Other people are trying to compete who will make the faster horse that can run. Let's say, for instance, in northern part of Kenya to South Africa. And one afternoon, another person says, maybe this horse runs 60 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, but I am going to bring a jet fighter to compete with these horses. The man that has brought a jet fighter has changed the basis of competition because there is no relationship on the speed of a horse and the speed of a jet fighter. So if you enter into a market system and you bring a new basis, it means that you are innovating, changing the construct of that particular market. Because other people are looking at marginal improvement, but you are coming with total level of destruction that can change everything in that market. There used to be a time in Nigeria, for example, for you to make a call, you have to be a very rich man to own a phone. We had a monopoly in the national telecommunication company. Then some companies started coming up, Econet, MTN. They made it possible that anyone who wants to make a call can also buy. You don't have to have the ability to have tons of money before you do that. A new basis of competition was coming, that you could buy a SIM card for $1 and you can even get it free, and you can load it with less than $1 and you can make a call. You don't have to have had $10,000 before you can have a phone line in your house. That's the new basis of competition. And that's the reason why the national monopoly has gone bankrupt or exited the scene, because it doesn't have the capacity to compete at that level. So across markets, across systems, when a new basis of competition comes through innovation, what usually happens is that growth comes. Just this week, MTN had a 59% growth year on year on data from where it was last year. That's the sign of a company winning its market ordinance. And that's also the sign that the mobile telecommunication system in Nigeria is giving them a new basis of competition against any other thing that will in existence. But as for that to happen, it means that a new gear of innovation must evolve. And that new gears of innovation is what gives you what we call disruptive innovation. That new basis of competition comes when companies do not serve just the needs, the expectations, or the perceptions of their customers. You know, the needs of customers are things that customers know they need. You can serve a man with electricity from coal in the state of Pennsylvania, but that man is an environmental activist. The day he sees Solar City that provides him electricity from solar, he says, even though the coal from government utility board is giving me electricity, I do not feel comfortable using it because I do not believe that we have to pollute the earth. I am going with Solar City because Solar City has met my needs and also my expectation. But the greatest companies on earth are not companies that meet the needs of customers or the expectation of customers, but they are the companies that go towards meeting the perceptions of customers. Perceptions of customers are things most times the customers never even imagined they needed. But the day they see those products and services, they come in drove because a new basis of competition has come and new leverageable factors have emerged. The day iPhone was taken to Verizon in America, Verizon did not make sense of it and rejected the opportunity of working with Apple. It means that there are products that surveys, market surveys or studies or focus groups cannot give you an unlock. Steve Jobs said, I don't believe in surveys. Steve Jobs said, I don't believe in focus group because even the customers do not even know what they need. He believed on something, that he can create a new customer base that never existed, stimulating a new dimension of needs that is unbound, that is unconstrained from geography. So he went at the level of perception. The day iPhone was unveiled in the world was never the same again. Because he went beyond the needs, he went beyond the expectation to the perception of customers. And the point for us today is, if we are looking for that growth after this pandemic, are we still going to build products and services that are just meeting the needs and expectations of customers? Or are we going to build things that will move at the level of perception? Across most markets in Africa, I believe, most of us are very conversant in the new generation banks. You put money in one branch of a bank, irrespective of the branch, you can operate that account. But I tell you, more than 30 years ago, especially in Nigeria and West Africa, if you have an account in Pennsylvania and you travel to California and you run out of cash, you have to come back to Pennsylvania before you can take money from your bank account, even though there is still a branch of the same bank in front of you there in California. The branch will tell you, we don't have your data. We don't even know you. You have to go back to the specific branch where you open that particular bank account. So banks open up a new basis to compete with the old banking ordinances. And that new basics was something that even the customers never believed was possible. That I can have a bank in Lagos and I travel to the city of Kano in Nigeria and I can still operate the same bank account, even though I was not in the same city. That's a perception. And of course, another example is Intel. Intel makes it possible that when you are trying to buy a laptop, you don't ask a question of just, oh, is that HP, is that Lenovo, is that ThinkPad, is that Dell? Intel was struggling with market share with AMD many years ago. But one afternoon, Intel said, I want to put a sticker on all Windows laptop. And that sticker will be Intel inside. So that when people want to make a decision, they are not just making a decision on the black box. They want to make a decision on the microprocessor that was powering that laptop. As Intel did that, AMD was knocked out of his life. Ladies and gentlemen, the key thing here is finding a way to change the basis of competition. And it has nothing really to do with your technology supremacy. But most times it's actually our ability to build a perception in the minds of customers. Because it is not he who does most of the work, most times that actually monetizes the ecosystem where everything is happening. In our world today, it's extremely very challenging that you can build and you can also gain. Facebook, for instance, feeds on all the newspapers do. The newspapers struggle, Facebook does one thing, Facebook triumphs. Google feeds on every website in the world. And all the search engine optimization are basically working for Google unpaid. Because when you have an SEO engineer in your company doing that website, making it easy for Google to discover, what you are basically saying that Google, we have employed somebody we pay so that that person can work for you to discover our sites. So I say this way using a smiling curve. The most important thing is at what phase of that curve are you participating, and not necessarily hard working you are. If you work at the edges of the curve, you are going to find value. I think the slide will be shared with you later on if you can't see it. It's a very critical thing that you have to have the ability to know where you are working. And I explain this with a very simple example. I'm basically rounding up. In Amazon, we have an e-commerce company. It's a very great company. And if you take the business of Amazon and go to Lagos to start Jumia or Konga, as I have written extensively in Harvard Business Review, that I do not believe that Africa has any way to make a profitable e-commerce business, excluding South Africa, maybe over for a very long time. The reason being that there is no e-commerce business in any part of the world, developing world, that have succeeded by just building an e-commerce operation. The first e-commerce company in Africa was Kalahari, that was founded by Naspers, the largest market capitalized company in continental Africa. So Naspers is the company that owns a very big chunk of Tencent, which owns WeChat in South Africa. So it started Kalahari, it failed. They started Mocality, it failed. They started OLS, it failed. There was everything from a company in Europe, it failed. Then you can see that Jumia itself has struggled. Konga itself has struggled in Nigeria. And all of them struggle because these companies copied a business model like Amazon, but they did not realize that all the most successful e-commerce companies in the developing world have had what I call the double play strategy. If you go to India, Flipkart, which is a very successful e-commerce company, has the PhoneFi, which is one of the largest fintech companies in India. Alibaba's success is not because of Alibaba.com, but because of Alipay. You can use Alibaba.com for free, but the payment system has to go through Alipay. Amazon makes it possible that, hey, you can buy things for really ridiculously amount of time, get those things shipped. But as Amazon is ravaging malls, ravaging physical stores, consultants in America telling those malls, go to e-commerce, go and build an e-commerce. Do you know the company most of them go? They go to Amazon Web Services. So the more Amazon can dislocate the physical domain of commerce, the more Amazon through the AWS is creating more opportunities for itself. My point is this, that it is not really a question that AWS is the most profitable unit of Amazon, even when the e-commerce company doesn't make a lot of money in terms of profitability. You need to have an ability in your business or where you work, how your company can come up with a double play so that what people think that can actually be generating more money for you may not necessarily be what matters. No one talks about the OWS in American Congress. Everyone is talking about the e-commerce platform. But I tell you that the most important unit in Amazon is the AWS. But without the e-commerce platform, the AWS will not find success. So it comes down to how do you play leverage and how do you have a double play. I will not go into the one I call the one oasis strategy because of time, but the point I'm making here is this. Your firm or yourself can unlock market opportunities by having the capacity to transition the customers from consumers to customers into firms. And to do that, a very critical element is, if you are in the digital business, is what I call the marginal cost. How is it possible that as you are serving more customers, the cost of serving one additional customer drops? If that does not happen, there is no way on earth that you can scale that business. In our post-COVID world, we are expecting few things to happen. One of the things that will happen is that companies will become more digitalized. Companies will move from the physical realm of market systems into the digital world. And if you want to succeed in the digital world, it means that as you serve more customers, the cost of serving an additional customer has to drastically keep going down to zero, because that is the only way you can improve your scalable advantage and have a leverageable factor that is unbounded and unconstrained so that you can scale. If you can do that, and you run into the difficulty that as you begin to scale, your marginal cost begins to go up, you having a curve like average fixed cost, you can't do great business. Marginal cost is equal to the distribution cost plus transaction cost. Transaction cost is like maybe the fee you pay to process a payment system. Distribution cost is the cost that is required to actually distribute the goods. And in the post-COVID world, companies that want to thrive, they have to look at how they can get their marginal cost going down towards zero. It's only when we do that, that is when the magic opportunities will begin to happen. And across most part of Africa, we don't know how the recovery will come. I've always used Nigeria as an example. Is it going to be a U shape, V shape, or L shape? If it's the V shape, it means that the markets are already cracking, the economies are cracking, and they can rapidly go up. I don't believe that, because Nigeria technically has not recovered since 2007 market crash, 2008, 2009 market crash. And most part of African markets have not necessarily recovered. So what we usually have may be protracted for some economies like Ethiopia. South Africa is different, because South Africa is the most advanced economy in the continent. So we don't usually have a conversation in South Africa within other African countries. But for most economies, it's going to be L-shaped. They have cracked down, but they are not necessarily going to rise over a very long period of time. And that is the greatest difficulty that we are going to face. Because if that is the case, it means a generation of people are going to become poorer, because more as the population increases and the GDP is not increasing, the per capita income of the citizens continue to drop. So what do? I see 4 things that will happen in this post. The first is that companies are going to move into the massive adoption of cloud computing. Cloud computing basically says, I want to move a lot of my activities and business processes in the cloud. That is expected. That is expected. We're going to move our market system into the cloud. And if we move our business systems in the cloud, it makes it possible that we can overcome some of these current challenges that we have seen within this COVID-19. And that migration to the cloud also means that there will be a lot of digitization. In short, if you are working on your CV or looking at how you can find opportunity here in the United States or anywhere in Canada or Western Europe, it's how you can tweak your career. It's how you can tweak your capability that you are now a market champion for digitization. In short, there needs to be something like cloud migration, digitization in your CV. You have to find a way that those robots that look at CVs can find that this man or this woman is going to become a messenger of digitization, because digitization is going to become an extremely important component as the world tries to move towards this paralysis into the next moment. I've used Nigeria here, it doesn't really matter, but this is something that is applicable in our continental Africa, is also applicable in the United States. And we also going to see a world of semi-automation. In Africa, it's going to be semi-automation, but here in the United States and here in Western Europe and here in North America in general, it is going to become automation. What is it that we are talking about automation? It's ability to have machines do so many things that human beings are doing. Just yesterday in Nigeria, the largest bank in Africa by customer base, Access Bank of Nigeria, say that it has looked at about 75% of its total workforce, that he can go into fire so many people within that 75%. It could be that he can fire 1% of that. It could be that he can fire 74. But there is one thing that is a constant. The age of automation has come, and companies are being transformed. I have seen what is happening in South Africa. If you have been paying attention, every quarter there is always a demonstration because people are actually fired in the banking sector. It's not just in the banking sector. As these tech startups are coming into our economics, they are redesigning our market systems, causing disruption in markets. But most of them are not creating enough job to compensate for what they are directly destroying. Is that in America? In 1979, General Motors, had about 1 million workers, about 850,000 workers, serving about 500,000 customers around the world. Facebook has 49,000 and so staff, serving more than 2.5 billion people. So where are the jobs going to come if one company can serve 2.something billion customers and yet only 50,000 people? Whilst one was using 1 million people to serve 500,000. Of course, you will say one is a physical industrial age company, one is a knowledge age company. But for rogues, especially as immigrants in the United States and North America or Europe, the question for us is, in this age of automation, how is it going to affect us? What are we going to do to stay ahead of the curve? Because the most important thing here is this: we can never allow a machine to replace us because we are not an IP address. And how do we make sure we are not an IP address? It means that we need to understand that machines need us in order to get better. And that's where continuous development, continuous educational improvement, learning new things become very critical. And when we say learning new things, ladies and gentlemen, we are not talking about people going into technology. It's not just only technology that you have to develop capabilities. You can develop capabilities in marketing. Like I have explained here, that one of the most important innovations in Intel was not even the technology, was a sticker that when you want to buy a laptop, you ask somebody, does he have Intel inside? And if the laptop doesn't have Intel, you say it's not original, that you don't want to buy it. You want a laptop that has Intel. And so any other person that's making a microprocessor for Windows laptop now find an opportunity to sell, because people were asking for laptops that had Intel inside. Because Intel has had the ability to exert its influence from being a microprocessor that was hidden inside a black box to a microprocessor that people make a decision because of a sticker that is on the boards of a desktop or a laptop. So how are you going to engineer change in the company you work? How are you going to have an impact so that you become that individual that brings leverageable value that that company will always remember? At a time like this, that everyone is looking for growth, anyone that can go as a growth champion, as we get back to our offices, that person will be highly honored. And I also see that supply chain is going to be hybridized. The hybridization here means that a lot of companies in North America, Europe, even in Africa, people are not just going to sit down and say, let everything be made in Asia. We have seen that in 2003 or so, I think they had a SARS. And now we have this coronavirus. It means largely that there is a problem. So companies would like to have the ability to say, I have a supply chain that is global. I also want to have a supply chain that is localized. By having that combination, it makes it possible for me to manage the challenge. So the point is, are you going to have the ability to come with a conversation or a strategy that your company or that place where you work can actually benefit. And if you can think along that line well ahead to help them understand that supply chain risk cannot be unbounded, that would be a very good thing. And what is talking about supply chain here? Could be just figuring out who and who can supply and who can sell. But the biggest of all is that the world is going to move to remote everything. The remote everything is a very key element. I just made a video posted in a program I called the Tekidia Mini MBA, where we're analyzing the implication of what happened in Lagos, where the largest bank said that it's going to fire a lot of people. And the point that the CEO of that company, he was my 2018 Business Person of the Year, Herbert Nwige of Access Bank PLC Nigeria. He made a statement there, hey, there are so many people walking around our banking halls, they don't have any job to do. And what we are paying them. But with this pandemic, we have realized that most of those jobs were redundant. Let me say this. This pandemic provided companies a live pilot of what the future of farms will look like. No one would have believed that people can accomplish things when they are working from their homes or remotely. But this pandemic made it possible that there was a test and there was a pilot. And those things, largely, they came out fairly decent. So we've realized that, hey, CEOs can communicate through video, and you could hire somebody in Lagos instead of hiring somebody in the United States of America. The guy in Lagos, you pay him $2,000. A guy in Nairobi, Kenya, you pay $2,000, and the lady in Accra, you pay her $2,000 instead of asking to pay somebody here in the United States $10,000. And we just realized that the fact the guy can put a very good internet connectivity in his house in Accra, Ghana, and he can be online whenever you want him to be online, and you both can do the job. You are saving $8,000, and the world will not break apart because he doesn't show up at work every day. That is an experiment that has been proven. So because of that, a lot of things will change. I think I have maybe about 5 minutes. I don't even know where I have to stop. So
God, you know how to take it down. Is a play or I go for me? I want to take it down.
yeah. So how many minutes do I have, please? How many minutes do I have? I'm adding up. Hello? Surah, how many minutes do I have?
More.
Continue.
Okay.
Continue. You have 30 minutes
Okay.
more.
Okay, great. So we have remote everything. There is the issue of work, there is the issue of school, and then there is the issue of the office, and they're basically every aspect of our business systems. So what I would like us to do, especially as immigrants and also largely minorities across as professionals, let's say in outside the continent, and I also know that there are so many of our brothers and sisters that are also dialing in within the continent, is demonstrating the ability that even when these changes are coming, that we have the resourcefulness and the resilience that we can overcome them. You know, in this age of pandemic, as we return back to the normal, they will be watching how all these things are going to be used to evaluate people. Is it a kind of guy that I can give the job and I can see him at work every day and expect that in the next 3 days when I want the work done, that assignment will be ready? Or is it the kind of person, if I give him the work and expect it in the next 3 days, he will give me an excuse? Our ability to grow and ability to find success will be dependent on the way we are managing these relationships. So the issue of school, the issue of work, the issue of medicine, the issue of sales, and how we in our different roles can show that level of adaptability, of reliability, will be very, very helpful in the way we can overcome. You know, many bad things happened in 2009. And one of those things that most Africans who lost their jobs, most people have to leave United States Western Europe back to the continent. Of course, people may say, okay, it's good to have those skills back, but unfortunately, the implication is that if you don't do those things willingly, it's actually a back thing to yourself and your family. As the US here, more than 30 million people have filed unemployment. I can tell you that it could be a very challenging moment for so many of our brothers and sisters. A lot of people are losing their jobs. And if that is the case, the question here is how are people going to quickly recover? And it comes down to having this antenna of recognizing the way the world is quickly changing. The innovation that drives growth is the innovation that all of us have to pursue. It is not the invention of I have the best idea and that best idea does not translate to anything. Like that curve I showed you in this conversation, where the people that created the most fundamental elements of physics and chemistry, most of them when they died, they were buried with borrowed graves because they did not own anything. They didn't have any assets. They were very poor people, even though they were so intelligent in giving us the physics and the chemistry that we enjoy. So because they could not translate those ideas into services and products that people could buy. So the question for every one of us is not how are we going to become the think tanks, but the question is how are we going to become the do tanks? How do we get things done? And it can apply in our personal lives, it can apply in our business lives. But the most important thing, if we are working in a company, how can people see us as someone that gets things done? It has nothing to do with your level of intellectual capacity. Well, most times it has to do with the way you organize yourself. I agree with you that the people that graduate the best in their classes are not usually the most intelligent people. They are always the people that have figured out how to manage and plan themselves and become most effective in that class. So the guy who is more intelligent may not put enough time to study, but the guy who is less intelligent, he puts more effort to compensate for the time that he's not as smart. And that is what is going to happen. Managing the evolving change that we are expecting in this post-COVID-19 and connecting it into new opportunities that are emerging. And the new opportunities are like this. Uber, Stripe, these are great companies. They were started during the last recession, during the Great Recession. And we have proven already that there are things that are working here in the United States, here in Canada, here in Western Europe, and also in Africa. Because if you are looking at the data that most small telecommunication companies in Africa are producing, it means that indeed that the migration that most people had expected to have happened to be happening in the next 4 years are already happening. People are moving digital and people are moving cloud. And if those happen, it means that physical businesses in the continent, most of them will shrink. And if those physical businesses shrink, many paralysis will happen. There will be massive dislocation in the revenue of government. In short, I have looked at the data for Nigeria, and this thing is so simple. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, for you to make a call from Lagos to London, maybe for 10 minutes, you may be spending maybe $20 equivalent or thereabout. But today, to make that call through WhatsApp, there's a possibility that you may spend less than 10 cents because the data plan you have, the equivalent you consume for that call, may be less than 10 cents. So that means that if the government has to charge tax, government is charging tax on 10 cents instead of $20. So as you go toward digitization, government will get lesser revenue, even though the citizens will save, but the citizens now control whatever they want to do with their money. The same thing happens in the United States. The same thing happens in Western Europe. You see the dislocation between how big the companies are growing and actually how much the government is getting. So my point is this, that the disruption that is coming is not just going to be about individuals. That individuals will be affected, government will also be affected... I always ask people, what is the value of Skype? People say, oh, it's a very good business. But if you look at the data, most of the companies that are because Skype doesn't have the ability to convert most of the destruction it causes to itself. You use it for free and talk as many times as possible. But by using Skype, you are denying MTN, Verizon, AT&T, Econet opportunity and revenue. But Skype has destroyed that value without converting that value to itself. Because that money that you would have paid MTN, you are not going to give it to Skype. So that basically disappears. And that means government doesn't have access to it. So the safety nets will dry up because resources will dry up, especially back home. And if that happens, the burden will be to some of us that are living outside the continent. And that is also the moment where, if we have that relationship or that work back home, we can say, how are we going to become the agents that will drive into that next redesign that will be happening in the continent? And that is the message that I want to share with you. And as I share that, also just point out that I discussed that with the leadership of the Pan-African IT Forum, that I run a program we call it the Kidia Mini MBA. What that program basically does is that we have a management system that we run for 4 months. It's 100% online. We develop videos, we develop class notes, and we post them, and people come and consume them weekly. So it runs for four months, and courses are new sections are posted every week. So there is one that's scheduled for next June. It starts June 22nd. There is one that is going on now. We have leaders from MIT, Deloitte, Queen's University, from Flutterwave, Nigeria, from Schlumberger, United Kingdom, from Sherwin-Williams, United States of America, from American Tower. And the last one we ran, there were 16 countries that were represented. It's a very, very huge program, and it cost about $140 per person, or 50,000 naira for $140 per person. Techidia.com. Then we also run a cybersecurity program called Face Atlantic Cybersecurity. It's a program that facyber.com. It focuses on policy. It focuses also in management, and it has a model for technology, anti-terrorism, and digital forensics. So we offer certificate program in cybersecurity management, certificate program in cybersecurity policy, certificate program in cybersecurity technology, certificate program in cybersecurity digital forensics, and we also have the diploma part of it. The diploma is basically a capstone, which is like a research work after somebody has finished the certificate. So I explained the leadership that any member that works through the leadership to reach out to us for any of these programs, that we offer about 50% to the members of Pan-African IT Forum. And as I close up here, because I know there's question and answer, I just want to point out one thing here, that as immigrants in this beautiful part of the world, that our responsibilities and our challenge as this disruption happens, because most times we are always the most vulnerable because of so many factors, that if they're asking people to go, there is a tendency that most of us will be affected. The only way we can overcome is by making ourselves exceedingly well prepared for whatever comes next. And the only thing that will help us do that is by giving companies what is most important right now. And what is most important to companies right now is growth. And that growth means they have to stop what is happening, bleeding, and they have to start earning revenue and adding customers. If you are looking for what to learn or contribution you have to make to your company, find a way that you can help that company deliver growth. And that's why in the leadership of the Pan-African IT, we say, let's focus on innovation for growth. How can you help that company earn revenue? Because earning revenue in the next few weeks will be extremely challenging for companies, because people are really dry and people are not going to spend, because the confidence interval, consumer confidence is very, very low. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the conversation I would like to share with you, and I want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, our prof,
Thank you.
for the nice presentation. And of course, please, if you have any question, please write it out so that we can start asking our prof. And actually, we so much appreciate you. Even from all the discussions we had privately, we know your desire to help us, those of us in US and Canada here, as well as your desire as well to equally add value to people, to our people in Africa. And I think this FA Cyber is so important that I think we can, apart from being useful to us in America here, in Canada, I believe we can equally subscribe for our people in Africa. Rather than asking for money from us, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, we can empower them in terms of this. And of course, we are going to, the Pan-African group, we are going to have a meeting on how we can tap into this in terms of, we have already been giving nice discounts as Pan-African IT forum level. So we are going to see how we can be able to maximize the gain. And I tell you, mini MBA program is just like what you are going to spend thousands of dollars going to Harvard, MIT to acquire. And I believe this is really a very great opportunity for all of us. I'm part of the first set, and I know the new sets will soon begin. So I enjoin all of us, apart from doing it, gaining the knowledge, capabilities, for those of us here in US, Canada, we can equally help our people back home in Africa. I think the payment, Prof will tell us the equivalent in naira and dollar very soon. So these are the questions. Let me quickly read it out so that Prof can help us. Someone asked, what are the questions you ask when you see an opportunity to validate that it will drive growth? What are the questions you ask when you see an opportunity to validate that it will drive growth? Someone, Mr. Ademola wrote that. Mr. Ademola Bodunrin. Mr. Eufakos, Prof.
Okay.
We are just entering the same e-commerce business in Nigeria. Launched January this year, which Jumia, Konga are struggling. What can we do differently to not fall in the same shoe? That is, he said they are just trying to start up e-commerce business, and what can be done differently so that they can perform better than Jumia and Konga.
Yeah, let me take those two. Then you put the next two, and so that we can just break it into pieces.
Okay.
So for the e-commerce, one thing I would say clearly is you need to have what I call the double play. By double play, we mean that you cannot run an e-commerce operation alone, because in the continental Africa and Asia or even Latin America, there had never been an e-commerce company that was wholly only on buying and selling of merchandise that have succeeded. So if you are starting an e-commerce business, have your double play. Is it that the e-commerce business will empower and enable you to deliver any other kind of service? It could be fintech, it could be savings. So as the e-commerce company is helping you to bring those customers, you now turn back to those customers to make money from them in something that is entirely not really e-commerce. But in terms of having profitability directly from e-commerce, you have a bigger problem to deal with, which is logistics. E-commerce does not scale in Africa because you are providing the logistics yourself, or you are using a logistics company to do that for you. But that logistics company does not leverage on any postal service, meaning that even if you think you are succeeding that job can never be as optimal as if there is a postal service. You know, I have a very, very important seminar paper on that in Harvard Business Review, and you can get back to leadership. I will just send them a note where you can read it. The point I'm making here is this. If you have an e-commerce business, let's say in Lagos, and somebody in, let's say Kano wants to buy from you, you may say, oh, we don't ship to Kano. So if you have a business that you cannot cover the geographical boundary of a country, it's not more electronic. You're basically running a physical business, because it's only a physical business that says it does not serve every part of the country. But if you come to Amazon, there is something that is so unique about Amazon. Amazon can serve Alaska. Amazon can serve Hawaii. Amazon can serve Washington State, Washington, D.C. Why? There is a United States Postal Service. And the United States Postal Service declares tons of billions of losses every year. And the US Congress said, we don't care. Because without United States Postal Service, Amazon will not be a $1 trillion company. Walmart will not be what it is. JCPenney will not be what it is. Small SMEs in America will not be what they are. So the US says, let's waste the $26 billion that the Postal Service may lose in a year. By wasting the 26 billion, we can make it possible that Amazon will become a $1 trillion company. Jets from Walmart will become a big company, and Sears and Macy's. At the end of the day, you're having a valuation of more than, let's say, $10 trillion worth company that depend on that United States Postal Service. If you take a tax on those revenues of those companies, the profit of those companies, you are going to get nearly more than 500 billion, but you are spending 26 billion. So when the government runs the math, let's waste the 26, make postal service loss making, but we are going to get 500 billion from taxes that this postal service is enabling. Gentlemen and ladies, is that not a good business? That is a good business. You are investing 26 billion and you're getting a tax of 500 something billion at the end. But in Africa, we don't have that luxury, because the leadership we have, is excluding the one in South Africa, they don't see that they can have that loss-making postal service in order to seed this e-commerce company you want to start. Because if we have a postal service in Nigeria, Konga would have been a very big company. Jumia would have been a very big company. And if they are a very big company, the taxes they would have paid would have compensated, along with other companies in Nigeria that would depend on that postal service, well more than what the government may be losing, assuming that the postal service is not profitable. So you have to find a double play, and don't run a full-fledged e-commerce without a double play. Think of Alipay for Alibaba. Think of Flipkart think of Funfi for Flipkart. You have to find something that complements whatever you want to do. Now, on the question of how do you look at the growth and something scale, I always say this: don't do something that doesn't scale. And how do you know something that scales? It's something that the more you do it, the more the cost of doing additional one drops. If the cost of doing more does not drop, it means you do not have economies of scale. If you go back to the original fundamental entries of a classical economics of Adam Smith, where the postulation of land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, it comes down to one thing. If I have a bigger factory and I deploy those factors of production, it means that I can have a better efficiency in the utilization of those factors of production. But if I cannot have better efficiency, the utilization of those factors of production, it means that I am not going to have the ability to compete. Let me give you a very practical example. When Dangote, for instance, goes into any sector, Dangote looks for one thing. Are there many people that he can make money from? Is that sector extremely dynamic that no matter what happens night and day, people will buy? Is that sector extremely vital to the success of the economy of that nation? Is that sector something that no matter, there's just no other way out? That is very critical. Cement is key. Maize, the farming products, those things are important. Flour. The former president of Sudan was taken out of power because of bread. He increased the price of bread in Sudan. This man has survived World Health Organization, survived UN, survived sanctions from African Union. survived everything the world had thrown. But the only thing that took Oma out of Sudan was the loaf of bread. So Dangote knew that flour, you are not going to take it away from Africans. So, but this is it. He says, I'm going to invest in things that I know people depend. So if you are looking for leverageable opportunities for scale and growth, just have the same antenna like Dangote. I actually be having a book on the Dangote system, techniques for building conglomerates. Actually, is coming out later in June, and anyone that registers into Kidia BNB gets a free copy of it. So one of the things that we have realized is that when Dangote sees a market, he uses his accumulated capabilities. For instance, I discussed the capabilities, and he goes into that market using efficiency in the utilization of factors of production because he's big, and then he reduces cost and improve quality. And once he reduces cost and improves quality, the competitor has no other place to go than to leave the business and that sector for Dangote Group. But there was one company that Dangote struggled to do that in Lagos, and that was the Indomie noodles. I don't know, many of you are familiar with the noodles. Noodles is a kind of new kind of food that was not even African. If you look at literature in Africa 30 years ago, you will not read anything about noodles. But it turns out, just magically, group of innovators from Asia came into Africa and found that it was taking a long time for people to prepare African food. You want to put yam, fufu, and all those things. Take about 1 hour. This guy has already been hungry for the last 1 hour, and the food is still on the fire. So let's make food that is sharp. That's how they say it in Nigeria. Within three minutes, the food is ready, and it's not really a bad food. That's the Indomie noodles. Dangote say, man, people are buying this thing like really hot cake. I am going in. He started Dangote noodles. And Dangote noodles had his trucks, had his farm, had his supply chain. Everything was inside Dangote. But you know one thing? Dangote did not know that the people that are actually in charge of Indomie noodles have done everything, typical things that Dangote will always do to go into any sector or any category. So when Dangote came, there was nothing more Dangote could do that these people have not done. And because there was no more efficiency left in the system or the production system, Dangote noodles could not reduce price or improve quality. And because Dangote noodles could not reduce price, because all the efficiency had been extracted out by the pioneers of the sector, Dangote noodles had to sell Dangote noodles to Indomie noodles owner, which is Prime. So he sold. And when Dangote was selling, he says, hey, I don't have any other thing to improve that these guys have not done. The owners of Indomie noodles, they have their own school. They have their own trucks. They are not even connected to the Nigerian national grid. So all those things that Dangote does, they were able to have perfected them. There was no more efficiency left for Dangote to take over. So when you are thinking of value and thinking of growth, you have to look at businesses that have scale. Sectors, let me use the word category, because we're not even talking about sectors now. We're talking about category. A sectoral category that has scale with a lot of participants that are going to see what you offer is very, very vital. Yesterday, a bank in Lagos told us, can you train our SMEs in your mini MBA? And we were shocked. How can you not go to Lagos Business School, University of Lagos, and you want us to train you? And we asked why. He said, hey, we saw that your curriculum, you changed it during the pandemic. And we are one of our members. We realized that during the pandemic, the curriculum has to change on the fly because it matters to people. So it's the same thing that happens for growth. Ability to readjust by having awareness and having observation. I think I'll stop there for those two questions. So next ones, because of time.
Yes, thank you. Another question is, what's your take on having a business in local currency or in America? That's a question from Mr. Admin. Another question, what professions Should we encourage our children and relatives to study in college? That's from Mr. Yemi Salau. What to encourage to study in college? There is Mr. Benson Ozeo, that's my colleague. Professor, thank you for an eye-opening presentation. Can you expound on how the Nigerian banks are profitable year in, year out in an economy that is in shambles? Let's get the answers for the three questions first.
Yeah, I was a banker in Lagos, and it's really very simple. I was a banker in Lagos before I came here.
I know Diamond
It's
Bank.
very simple. Yeah, I work in Diamond Bank, so it's easy.
The
This is
person
what
that asked
happens.
was in UBA.
Okay, yeah, it's so simple. The government actually wants them to be profitable. So in the morning, you go and buy, let's say, dollar at 310 naira, and in the evening, people can come and buy the same dollar at 360. Typically, you've just made cool 50 naira per dollar without doing anything. So that's one. And so that variance of what the government sells the dollar and what these banks can also sell to customers is a very huge revenue source. Then the next one is a national bank fees. In US here, if you have the minimum deposit base for your current accounts in US, you may not see any fee or charge. But there is no practical way in the Nigerian banking sector where you can avoid fees. There is no way. No matter what happens, there must be a fee, either your ATM fee or either your account maintenance fee or one kind of fee or the other. And they will also charge you VAT. So one of the banks, I think the fees, the fees one of the banks collected was hitting nearly 36% of its total revenue. So it is a real big issue. That's why even if the economy doesn't grow or the economy struggles, provided those transactions are happening, they have to collect their tax, which is the fees. So that's one of the factors. But finally, Nigerian banks are not really that profitable. If we're real, the largest bank in Nigeria is Guarantee Trust Bank by market cap, and it's less than $1.5 billion. I mean, what is $1.5 billion for the market cap of, we could say, the largest economy in Africa? I mean, if in America here, you could get 10 CEOs in top banks, and you add it to, I mean, you may see that may actually be their salary for a year. So, but that's the largest bank market cap in Africa, in Nigeria. So we in South Africa, you see banks that are worth 30 something billion, but in Nigeria, you see a bank that is worth 1 point something billion. Because if you look at the fundamentals, there is no leverageable sustainable growth model. If they have a very bad year, they can go bankrupt. And that's what happened in Diamond Bank. Diamond Bank flipped from 1 point something billion naira, so, and the next year it declared nearly 2 point something loss. So because there is just no core. And that's why the valuations of these banks are not strong. They are not really huge. So what our kids can study here in US, I always say this: if there is any way they can study what if the worst happens, they can do things with their hand. They can do things they can take things in their own hand without relying on somebody giving them that first job. It will be a very good thing. If somebody goes to study languages, and for you to start on yourself after studying languages may be a very difficult thing. But somebody study computer science or study electrical engineering, and things really go bad, that child has a chance that he or she can code and he or she can build something. So it's more of how do you create that opportunity if the real external one is not there. What we have learned in US is that an average person will expect to be laid off at least 2 times in his career. Depend if you are not in education, if you are not in healthcare. I mean, I'm sorry to say this, I don't want to make people feel bad, but this is just a reality here. So, and an average person expects to be laid off. So the question here is if you have a skill set that, all these sciences, I'm biased because I did electrical engineering. You have more resilience in getting over things because your chances are more that you can work in so many. So that's one. But going to study arts, going to study music, yeah, you could do those things. But the people that actually do well in these things, they don't really need any university education. They are just talented people. So that you went to school to study music is not going to make you a better musician, I would say. Or you went to study art will not make you a better artist if you are not a great talented one. You are just going to look for somebody that will hire you in a studio. And if there is none, you now create a lot of problem for yourself. But if you have a technical skill, you can always figure out how. In short, there is something that is happening right now before this pandemic. Many Nigerians that studied here in US that had difficulty, even in Kenya. I've seen a lot of guys in Kenya, even in South Africa, even in Ghana, in Ethiopia. What do? You finish from a school in US here with decent degree. You get a multinational company in Africa, hire you, send you to Africa. They like the fact that you've studied in America and you understand their way of life. And they will send you to Africa, and you are going to agree that you take a local rate. For you, it doesn't matter. Because if Google sends you to work in Google Nigeria, you take the Nigerian salary scale, not the American one. Google feels good. We have this American talent working in Nigeria. We're paying you the Nigerian rate. But you yourself, your CV has that you work in Google. So what do? Within 2 years, they are back in US in a very great company because the people that are hiring them will say, they were working in Google. Who cares whether it was Nigeria or whether it was San Francisco? So, but for you to have those opportunities, the companies that do these things are typically tech, science, and physical based thing. It doesn't. When I say tech here, I'm not talking about IT. I'm also talking about AstraZeneca. I'm talking about Pfizer. I'm talking about uh, uh, um, uh, drug companies that are making drugs. So that's the trajectory. People just say, "Let me go to Africa for 2 years." Within 2 years, they're back, and they have gotten into the system at a very good level. That's one way of thinking about how to plan your career. And then uh, the local currency. That local currency one, I didn't understand it. Whether he's talking about cryptocurrency or whether he's talking about forex. But
No,
if it's forex,
what I was saying is, what is your take on having a business in America, hard currency, or compared to having a business in Nigeria, local currency? What would you advise?
actually, the fact is this: I don't usually like approaching businesses from the level of the currency that is used, unless if there are relationship of moving factors of production across different national boundaries. So if the business is in Nigeria and it's totally Nigeria, if it's Naira, it's Naira. Anything that happens there is on Naira. So if it's generating good revenue for me in Nigerian Naira, I'm fine with it. I'm going to take it. And if it's in US and it's within US and it's generating in Naira, in dollars, I'm fine with it. But if there is now a relationship where I have to import things from Asia, import things from America to Nigeria, that's when it becomes complicated. Because now the difficulty now is after selling what you just imported when the Naira was, let's say, 200, 310, and we want to convert it back, can you buy to recover what you have just sent home? The same thing if the CD has been losing value, of course. About a few years ago, it was one CD to $1, but CD has lost ground already. It's the same thing. But if it's within that geographical boundary that you started that business without a lot of external interaction, Nigerian Naira is Nigerian Naira, even though it may not really buy you anything when you convert it to the bet. That shouldn't. In short, making a business decision international on currency is a battle you can never win. Because you just have to have a state of mind that these currencies can never appreciate against the dollar. There is just no way you expect the Ghanaian cedi to appreciate against the dollar. There's no way you expect it to Nigerian naira to. There's no way you expect the Kenyan shilling or the South African rand The state of all these things is that we are going to continuously lose value against Naira, at least for a very, very, very long time. So but the thing is that if the business gives you great revenue and growth, it doesn't really matter whether. I would prefer a business that is growing 30% in Nigeria to one that is growing 2.3% in US. And you know, the best kept secret in this thing is that it's easier to make money in Africa than actually to make it in US if you are in business. If you know what it takes to be qualified to the level where you can participate in most things in the United States by a company, the level of heritage you have to go through, that you are competing with companies that have 100 years of experience. You are competing with people that they have unlimited amount of cash. They have the best possible product. And then all of a sudden you go to Accra. You are the only one that knows how to do this thing. And they don't have a history of checking whether you have 100 years of experience or 20 years of experience. You can just open up a business in Accra and within less than 3 months, you get your first contract. But in US, it's so difficult because
Yeah,
there are companies that have been doing the same thing you want to do and they have not failed
but
because
what
the
about the
market has matured.
environmental, Professor? What about the environmental conditions that come with the risk that come with your business? If scaling up in Africa, there's a lot of on risk, a lot of on uncertainty. Even if you are making good profit, good margin, there's a lot of uncertainty in African market, especially in
There,
Nigeria.
there are there are a lot of opportunities in Africa, but everywhere has risk. Africa has its own risk. Nigeria has its risk. Ghana has, US has its own risk. The risk you have in US is if that business is doing well, Amazon can decide to go inside it. The risk you have is if that business is doing well, Microsoft can decide to go into it. And if they go into it, you go bankrupt. You don't have that risk in Africa. You don't have that risk in Kenya. So every economy has its own risk. Of course, we have the risk that we don't have good water, we don't have good electricity, we don't have good roads. But those are our risks. In US, there is a risk that a hedge fund can decide to buy 20 companies and combine it with one and decide not to buy your own, and then all of a sudden you give up. If I tell you how many companies have failed in the United States because they cannot just compete, because one big conglomerate had decided to enter into that sector. So looking at risk, we have to be very careful to understand one thing. If Africa is as perfect as New York City in terms of infrastructure, Warren Buffett will be interested in investing in Lagos. But because of the complexity in Lagos, Warren Buffett cannot understand Lagos and he will not bring in his billions in Lagos. If you are waiting for Lagos to be as perfect as New York City or San Francisco, the day it becomes that perfect, Warren Buffett and other rich men will invest in Lagos and you will not have an opportunity. So what am I saying here? There is never a better time to try. Because if you wait for everything to be perfect as you have it in US, the kind of interest from the rich money bags in the same opportunity that you are seeing today, you will not have a chance. You don't have a chance to go to Paris and invest in fashion because there are people that have billions that are putting it in fashion in Paris. And if Nigeria is like Paris in terms of certain opportunities, there are billionaires from all over the world that go to Lagos and put money. That time, maybe your $500,000 will not help you out. But today, Lagos is messed up in many ways. If you go with your $500,000, you're a king. And that's the way I look at it. And we have found great value in it. We have found great value that waiting for the right moment of perfection is also going to wait for huge, 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 bigger players. And those bigger players are risk to you. Fana, in Borders Telecoms in Aba, when I was finishing from Federal University of Technology from undergraduate, I was a best graduate student. And 9 months to graduation, they gave me a job, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom furnished apartment, a Mercedes Benz and a driver with a very big, nice pay plan. Borders Telecoms was the first CDMA, in that time. Just 2000. It was the first. And what was happening there, that to set up a telephone line, you have to pay borders equivalent of nearly $3,000 equivalent in Naira for the opportunity for borders to assign a telephone line. Businesses were paying for to borders to have the phone line, because with Borders Telecoms, within less than 24 hours you get your phone line. But if you go to the national monopoly, NITEL, it may take you six months. So people say, let me pay. The conditions were tough, because in the night you have to stay on the generator room to be making sure that the generator doesn't go back, because there's no national grid. The borders has to hire people watching their mast in the night, security, so that people will not come and vandalize it. It was total mess. But when the improvements were coming, MTN now showed up. Econet showed up. You know what happened to Borders? Borders has to sell. Borders sold to Visaphone. Visaphone was later acquired by MTN. So my point is this, that Borders would have preferred that things did not improve, because that was the only way it would have been in business. But when the conditions of the regulatory law system improved, other players came in and Borders couldn't compete. My point is this: don't be too fixated on the risk in Africa, because those risks are actually the reason why there are opportunities. Because the day those risks are taken out, your little opportunity or capability you have may not be enough to compete in Africa. That's the way I see it. And that is also what I tell people, that you can't just wait for the right time. Because if the right time is there, people like you may not even be the people the government will be looking for, because bigger fishes will come to swim in the ocean.
Thank you, Prof. Another question from Mr. Solomon Baba. He said, Prof, thanks for this wonderful presentation. Disrupting an existing market usually requires low-cost entry points, which is really difficult. If you innovate, cost goes up. Cost and innovation, which is best for Africa? That's one question.
If you innovate, cost goes down. Yeah. So typically, for a new basis of competition, one of the key parameters for a new basis of competition is that you have to say something new compared to what the present incumbents are doing. If you innovate, most times cost drops. But it does not necessarily mean that every innovation has to be accomplished by cost reduction. When Apple brought iPhone, the cost of iPhone was higher than the BlackBerry, but that was innovation. So the new basis of competition is not defined by cost reduction. Rather, is defined by the value attributed to the customer from the lens of the differentiation of within the market segment. I think I don't know. I wish that I think I don't know how to explain this, because there is a curve I would have shown here from our week one of the Winnie MBA, where I spent a week on that. In that plot, it's the value that customers derive cannot be encapsulated by cost alone. Rather, there are so many things like safety. If you have a baby that is 3-day old, the mother needs the baby. But when the baby becomes six months, and you want to go out and buy feeding baby food, I don't think your problem that time is a cost. Your most important element in the innovation is safety. So even if this one is $1 and this one is $3, and the way this one is packaged is cheap, and this one can be treated, you say, no, my baby is not going to take the $1. I want to buy the $3 because I'm sure it's from GABA and it's going to be very safe. The same thing happens. iPhone came, people were not looking at, hey, it's more expensive than BlackBerry. But people now saw the value that the iPhone can give to them. So innovation for Africa is key. But innovation in Africa doesn't mean that things have to be cheaper in Africa. It basically means that people will get value across different metrics they have defined. Across different metrics they have defined. In short, it comes down to that perception I mentioned. How do you see the attributed value that is coming for that particular product? Innovation, sure, reduces cost most times, but it does not have to be defined by cost alone. There is a
Yes.
school in Ghana, Aseshi University, founded by Patrick. I think Patrick Awa. Aseshi is not the cheapest university you can attend in Africa, but I think today is one of the best entrepreneurial universities in the continent because it's innovative in the way it does its program. Covenant University in Nigeria is one of the best private universities in Africa, and actually one of the best universities in Nigeria. It's a private school, but it's not cheap because private university has in short. I'm even biased because they have my portrait in their engineering hall. I didn't attend Covenant University, but they put my portrait there, and I'm telling you this: the way they do things, it's just atypical of the typical African system. They are operating like the American principle of merit. They have innovated. They are winning many awards, having the highest density of papers out of Nigerian university system. But they are very expensive. They have innovated, but they are not cheap. It's about value, and that value is a constellation of many elements. Next question.
Yes. Mr. Dimeji is asking, which company should you choose between AWS and Azure, Microsoft Azure, that if you are planning to go into cloud computing? That's a question. Mr. Wisdom Hansen, what is the future of a website that matches vendors for services in an event after the pandemic? Another one is Mr. Dimeji saying they rate Nigeria as the biggest economy in Africa. But how come South Africa economy is better rated than Nigeria in terms on a global scale?
Okay. So let me start from the last one. What is GDP? GDP is the aggregate kind of production in an economy over a period of time. Typically, most times is quarterly or yearly. So if you calculate the aggregate activity, economic activity, okay, this guy has turned yam into fufu. This person has turned gare into food. This other person has bought raw material and of silk and now made a cloth from it. And this other person has made a baby food. All these things are economic activities. When you bring a total summation of them, you have the gross domestic product. And that gross domestic product is a function of the participants in that market. So look at it this way. You have a school. In that school, there are 200 students. And each of those 200 students, there could be a maximum of 5 points each person could get. And each of them has gotten the 5 points. So the total cumulative points is 1,000. They have gotten the 1,000. Now there is another school. They have 20,000. Let's say they have 800 people. And the points they are scoring is 2 each. But 2, 2, 2. So you multiply the 800 by 2, you're getting 1,600. South Africa is like that for school. It has 200, getting 5 points, ending up with 1,000. Nigeria is like the one that has 800 people and getting 2 points and getting 1,000. The fact is that there are so many participants in Nigeria. At the end of the day, the aggregate economic activity in Nigeria is going to be bigger than the rest of South Africa. Just like in South Korea, the economy of South Korea is not as big because South Africa is a small country that no matter how good the economic system is, how advanced the economic system, the level of production they have because of their size is so small that it doesn't really have that big. The same thing applies to Singapore. Singapore. So if you take it as a country, of course. So South Africa has 57 million people. Nigeria has 200 million. Basically, Nigeria is 3 times the size of South Africa. So even if they advance at a very high level in terms of maturity of economy, it doesn't mean that the aggregate of their production is bigger than us because we have more people doing crazy, crappy things, but at the end of the day, we have more production coming out. So that is the way to understand what GDP means. It doesn't mean that you have to have a more maturing economy for you to actually become a best economy in terms of the gross domestic product. Now, in China, China has a larger economy than Germany, larger economy than Tokyo. So the question you ask yourself is, are you going to prefer the economy of China or the economy of Germany? Certainly, there's no comparison. The German economy is more matured. German economy is more dynamic. But how many people are in Germany compared to 1.3 billion people in China? So the little crappy thing China does can always translate to a higher level of GDP. And that is a problem that the United States government is fixing. US has about 320 million people. China has 1.3 billion. Any little level of productivity in China now would just top US economy by multiples. And that's what Elon Musk was saying, that US has already lost the race. Because all China needs to do is to have a marginal improvement on those 1.3 billion people. And when you multiply their total aggregate of economic activity, it's going to be bigger than whatever the United States 320 million people will do. I don't know if I explain it that way. So it's a question of mathematics, and it's a question of scale and how big people. Then the event website, unfortunately, the event website is going to struggle because I don't think without a vaccine that anyone is going to be participating. If you invite me to any event, it's by default. I'm not interested. Physical event, I mean, and it's not going to happen because no one is going to feel comfortable associating over the next period until they get a vaccine. Then Microsoft and Azure, I would say it's a tie. But because I use AWS, maybe you take AWS. The reason why I use AWS because, hey, Amazon gives me free credit. So because it's free, it's better. So I don't pay for AWS, and that is a good thing because they give me credit, and sometimes we also give to startups, and I do a lot of investments. I think I have more than, I just did one last week, Game Traction, bringing it to 32 companies. So we have so many startups that we write checks, and Amazon knows that though we are not a VC, we don't have the flashy office like VCs, but you know that you can do these things. Then we have companies in Texas, is even Silicon Valley. Curious AI is there in Silicon Valley. It's one of our portfolio companies, and in Germany we have Save and Flex. So I use AWS, but they are largely a tie. There is just no difference. Yeah, there's just no difference. But if you are doing something that has to do with voice, audio, I would say you go with AWS. Amazon Alexa is the most advanced voice technology in the world. And like if you go to the Wikipedia, my site, we have a voice engine that can read our blogs for you in some posts. That voice is powered by AWS. Azure doesn't have it. So Amazon has many years gap ahead of in certain area. But then Microsoft is the father of many things in terms of enterprise systems. There are also benefits in using Katana, but I think Alisa goes. Well, I'll go with the AWS.
Yes, thank you. Mr. FG said, thank you, Prof. This is the most amazing business lecture I've listened to in my 15 years FI experience, maybe financial investment experience. I'm interested in the mini MBA. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. You mentioned, Mr. Kenny Noah, you mentioned that most organizations will be going to the cloud and digitalizing. What are the opportunities that one can take advantage of? Then Mr. Solomon Baba said, you have answered it all. Thank you so much for adding value. So in terms of cloud and digitalization, what are the opportunities you think we can take advantage of?
Okay. Yeah, let me start with Mr. Solomon. So thank you so much, Mr. Baba, for your kind comment. Thank you so much. Then on the cloud and digitization, I will say this, like the gentleman that asked question on Azure and Microsoft. We have to, and there is of course there is also Google Cloud. There's Google Cloud is also there. So of course, it lacks really well behind AWS, Microsoft. But don't take it for granted Google Cloud is also there. The key thing there is you have to help companies to figure out how they will save money over a long time. That's what it's all about. Because if you are trying to present cloud as a way of the future, I'm an Igbo man from the southeastern part of Nigeria. They'll ask you, what is the money involved? And what I mean is that, how can I save money in this thing? You have to show people that going to cloud, migrating to cloud is going to help them save and also run their businesses more efficiently. It's not about the technology, it's about the value they will get. And because most times they cannot see it, because there's nothing physical that you're going to install, you have to make that case in a very, 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 very smart way. It's easy to go to a rich man and say, we are bringing in computers in your office. And the next day, the computers are there, he sees it. And now you're not telling somebody, I'm going to put your credit card in a file somewhere online. Every month they will deduct on it. The man will look at, what are you selling to me? Say he's in the cloud. You have to explain really the value he gets. But it's not a difficult thing. If you know the cost of him moving files, like in a hospital, how many papers they buy, how many entries they have to make, and then the cloud will bring some level of automation, how many staff man-hour that can be saved to move to other things instead of them doing the same thing. Approach it from the angle of, this is where you are, this is what cloud can give you. Yeah. There is a major project we're supposed to do for an oil corporation in Africa, National Oil Corporation. It's a value realization project. That value realization project is telling them, this is where you are. This is the value you can get if you adopt this technology. And that value has to look at terms of operational efficiency. It also has to look at the money savings. But it's not about the technology. Actually, I'm not a big fan of technology for technology's sake. People know me in the industry, especially in South Africa, that I have come to a project I actually recommended for a lower quality technology. Yeah, we did that in a bank. And the consultants, the vendors came and they called us. We say, what they are quoting is not necessary for this bank because it's over investment in technology. There is on that basis of competition, I think there is a quadrant there that we have over investment. Why would somebody need a laptop of $1,500 as a secretary? What email is he or she typing when a laptop of $400 can do? But people say we want value. We want the best possible. What kind of possible value do you need for the laptop 1,500 for a secretary? We say no. In some cases, no, we don't need this type of laptop to give a secretary. She needs a laptop of $300 or $400 because she's not running any script. She's not running any programming thing that needs a lot of computing resources. So those are the decisions you can also make, that this bandwidth is too much because what is going there is only text. There is no video. So why do we have to invest so much to use only 10% of capacity of what we're paying for? It doesn't make sense. So my point is this: you have to communicate the value of cloud to that customer business in a way that the customer can understand. I co-own one logistics company in Africa. Initially, they struggled. And when I say, guys, you are approaching your customers as you're coming to help them with logistics. That's, you're going to give them trucks to move their things. And that's not a business they're interested in. They're interested in how you solve their problem, not how many trucks you have or how many trucks. So you have to approach them as logistics consultants to help them optimize their supply chain. If you do that, you run your optimization model. You can see that instead of them getting the goods ready on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if you tell them to get all the goods ready maybe by Friday, you have saved them having 2 trips and then you have 1 trip. And if you do that 10 times, you are saving them a lot of money. So you have to go in to understand their business before you start saying buy more trucks or we have bring more trucks to carry for you. And that's how things started changing because they were now trying not just to help the number of trucks that will come, but also helping them to optimize the supply chain. That is also what you need to do when you're making the message of cloud. And it's a very critical one.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. There are so many questions, but I want to quickly summarize them so that there could be little time savings.
You know what you can do? Because let's not abuse the opportunity because this is North America. People are so busy with other things. If you send them to me, I promise you I'll make a video. I'll make a video, post them on YouTube, send you a link. I can just do them this time. So compile them
Okay.
so that when you now send the list, the gentlemen and the ladies, the company can go and watch it. I always like to respect people's time because I
First
can't be
time.
talking here. Most people say that, yeah, we have to respect their time.
Yes. Thank you so much, our Prof. The fact we see you as a mentor, and of course, for someone who read computer and electrical engineering and up to PhD level, to be talking business, talking economics, that shows that I still don't agree with people when they say quality of education in Nigeria is bad. Because if we have people like you and we have a lot of other professionals doing wonderfully well in America, in Canada, with this kind of things you have been able to do for us today, that shows quite all right that if people say education is poor, it shows your own education is poor, not an average Nigerian education. Because what I normally tell people is bring people in Nigeria to US for schooling and take people in America to Nigeria. Let's see the difference. So what I'm just trying to say in essence is we so much appreciate you and we hope next time when we call upon you, you to come and do presentation for us, you'll be able to grant us that, Liver Twist always asks for more. We can't finish everything in a day. But to my brothers, to my African brothers and sisters, I strongly recommend this Techimedia Mini MBA. I strongly recommend it, and of course the FA Cyber course as well. We strongly recommend it for all of us to partake in, so that all what Prof has said will be able to maximize the gains from them. And of course, we so much appreciate you on behalf of Pan African IT Group. We love you, and of course, we'll still be coming back to you for future engagements. And of course, Pan African Group, we are known for a lot of free lectures. We do a lot of free lectures just to improve IT human capacity of fellow African brothers and sisters. Even on a personal note, tomorrow we are starting cloud computing, majorly AWS cloud computing. We want to start from the CCP level up to the architecture level. It's going to be free. So if you are interested, maybe to get the link, you may chat us on WhatsApp chat plus 507 218 6430, or you see it on the Pan African group as well. Tomorrow we are going to post the link to everybody if you have interest in learning about cloud computing. We are going to be doing that. Then our Caesar Bootcamp is going to be a week, so we are equally going to post that as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending tonight's class. And once again,
let me just Chairman, let me just add here. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies. On that cloud computing, I also want to mention that in the June 22nd of the Techimedia Mini MBA, the head of cloud computing of Microsoft is going to be the person that will lead that section for us.
no,
In
that's
short,
that.
he had to write to Redmond, headquarters of Microsoft Global, to get permission to teach it. And the guy that is teaching fintech is the CEO of Flutterwave, one of the largest fintech companies in Africa. The person that is
Wow.
teaching transformation is a manager in Deloitte. And the guy that is teaching supply chain is from MIT. The guy that is teaching operational management is Schlumberger, UK. So what we are saying, when we said this Techimedia Mini MBA, we also have a professor from Queen's University. It's just a value thing. It's a community, it's a non-profit. I just want to, it's a 5013C. In US, a 501c3 non-profit is tax exempt. So we run this as a way of empowering our people. And I want to ask us to work with the leadership of the forum to register the 20%. We really like to have everyone to be part of this. So thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, my prof. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice, wonderful weekend. And of course, please keep safe. Please keep safe, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.